16 work specifically that we talk about. Our goals are to be a network hub, an information clearinghouse, a provider of training and technical support, and occasionally financial support, and a matchmaker of sorts for stakeholders. This morning, we're going to have presenters from Let's Get Ready and Hostos Community College in New York, and this is part of our College Success Network webinar series, in which we really try to bring to our K-16 community information, resources, ideas, and programs that we learn about that we think will be of interest and that folks might even have an opportunity to replicate. And so that's the whole point of the morning. And we're going to turn it over to Jordan. She can more fully introduce herself and her colleague, Elizabeth, and take it away.
Wonderful. Thank you, Janine. Good morning, everyone. I'm so glad to be with you all today. So my name is Jordan Wesley, and I am a social worker by education, and I've been working in partnership work for just under 15 years, partnering with schools, universities, other nonprofit organizations, and specifically been working with Philadelphia partners for the last 4 years, because I've been with Let's Get Ready for about 4 years as well. So before that, I was working actually in a high school overseeing a college and career readiness program at a school in Lower Manhattan. So that is who I am, and I'll let Elizabeth, my colleague, introduce herself as well.
Hi, thank you, Jordan. My name is Elizabeth Wilson. I'm Director of School College Partnerships at Hostos Community College. We are located in the South Bronx in New York City. We are part of CUNY, City University of New York. And as Director of School College Partnerships, my office includes all the partnerships with the New York City Public Schools.
Great. So Elizabeth and I are excited to share with you a little bit today. You'll see here kind of our big goal. We are not obviously the end all be all in partnership expertise, but we are fellow learners who are excited to be here with you to share a little bit about what we've learned in our work together, a little bit about our programs. And as a way to help us all kind of situate ourselves within the next hour, because as I was looking at the chat, it looks like we have some university representation, we have some community-based organizations, we have, it looks like maybe a couple of schools, charter school folks as well. So there's a great kind of gathering of people here together. And so to situate us all kind of in the students that we're serving primarily is the way we want to center ourselves. Elizabeth and I would love to jump into sharing a little bit about who our students are, what our big goals are as different institutions as well. So Let's Get Ready. These are the students that we're serving. It might be worth noting that in Philadelphia, the number of students of color who participate in the program is closer to 96%. And the first gen low income students is similar to kind of our national programs that we serve from Philadelphia all the way up through Portland, Maine. This translates into about 2,500 high school juniors from Philadelphia who have enrolled in our program since 2014, and over 400 near peer coaches since that time. We've been able to primarily do that because of an amazing professor out of Temple University who has hosted us on campus 3 times a year when we've been in person, but who has continued to be a great supporter of the program. So I'd be remiss without giving Susan a great shout out and appreciation for all of her years of partnership in Philadelphia specifically. Since 2008 with Hostos Community College, since that's who we're presenting together with today, we've trained and supported about 150 college student leaders to be coaches and have focused our work primarily there, though with some change in recent years, on our free SAT tutoring program and college mentoring for about 500 high school juniors. So most recently, Elizabeth and I have been working to extend our near peer mentoring work that Let's Get Ready does with college students to support more students who are enrolled at Hostos Community College and who are formerly participants in the early college program, College Now, that Elizabeth runs and will share more about. So we'll dig into all of that. But for now, what I'll say about Let's Get Ready's programs is that given this context of our students who we're working with, where we're partnering, we really focus on 3 big goals at Let's Get Ready. I'm sure this is similar for many of you: college enrollment. There are no academic barrier to entry into our programs, so we're focused on supporting any student who expresses an aspiration for college. We're working on persistence, so paying attention year over year how well students are doing. And one note I'll make as well is that our students, when you break this out by students who are in Philadelphia specifically, these numbers hold pretty consistently as well. And then lastly, obviously we're pushing towards that major goal of college graduation and helping to make sure that our students are getting all the way through to earning a degree. I'm excited to say that this number here is hot off the press with our most recent classes. And to achieve these results, we have been continuing to work in each phase of our program with our highly trained and supported college student peer mentors, who we call our coaches. I'll share a little bit about the kind of nuts and bolts of the program as well. But I hope that this kind of sets the stage and grounds us a little bit in these big picture things that we're all working towards in our different programs. So how do we achieve those results? This is kind of the Let's Get Ready program in a nutshell. This is the Let's Get Ready how. I think most people are probably familiar with Let's Get Ready as a free SAT prep provider, which is true, but it's also not all we do. Since 2015, we've been running a continuum of services with all of our programs building on what we do best, which is equipping college students to be amazing mentors and then holding them accountable to be high quality mentors with their peers. So the Access program, this is the oldest piece of our program. It's been around for 20 years, helping students prepare for the SAT, offering individualized support and goal setting for them. This is historically an in-person program, but this year we have pivoted to run fully virtual since spring 2020. And that's included about 1,100 students nationally who've participated virtually with us this year, and close to 300 high school juniors from Philadelphia. So we'll be opening up another 120 to 150 spots for our summer virtual programs as well. So we can connect more about that later if that's interesting to you. Our transition programs is for seniors in high school and was designed as a fully virtual program. It's been operating to help students all the way through the summer before they start college. And then the Success program supporting students, again, primarily virtually, but in normal times there have been some campus-based partnership as well. Both the Transition and Success programs provide students with a chance to pick the level of support that they need. It's really intensive personalized coaching, which we call our Core Plus option, or our research-based two-way texting curriculum, our core support, where everything is happening via text message, all of which is happening through the support of a college student. So through our partnerships with high schools and other community-based organizations, colleges, universities, students can enter the program at the time that they most need the support of a near-peer mentor, either during high school or during college. So of our 13,000 annual students, about 4,000 are current high school students, and a little over 9,000 are actually current college students. And we see that about 1,900 students are choosing that Core Plus model when you combine the Transition and Success program. So opting in for that more customized, individualized support with a near-peer mentor of their own. I've listed some non-negotiables here because I think especially as we move into our conversation about partnership together, it's important to think about what are the things that we can't let go of when we're in partnership, because one of the things Elizabeth and I will talk about a little bit is the ways that we've kind of had to play a little give and take in our working relationship together. But both of us being able to know and understand our core center has been really critical, I think, to both of our success. And so for Let's Get Ready, these are what some of those things are. I think with the near-peer mentoring piece, with hundreds of students serving as tutors, guides, cheerleaders each year, our staff is spending a lot of time providing them with really robust launch training, just-in-time training on a weekly and monthly basis, reviewing their mentoring work, giving them feedback. And so for us, it's a non-negotiable that to keep things high quality with a near-peer mentoring model, we have to maintain structures that can maintain that kind of accountability and support for them as well. The curriculum was listed here because it's highly scaffolded, our programs, because near peers aren't mental health professionals, right? Near peers aren't college advising experts. But they can do some really important things with the support of high quality curriculum. And so our curriculum is really designed to make sure that they're having the right conversations at the right time throughout it. Student choice and voice, as I mentioned, there's lots of different ways and moments that students can join our programs. They can also tell us what level of support they need so that we can continue to be responsive to what students are telling us. And then partnership. All of our work as a national program happens through partnership. We have about 75 partner relationships that we are working with annually. We're running programs with and for universities, for high schools, for other community-based organizations. And we're really committed to making sure that we're setting shared goals, providing data on progress, tailoring our work to meet the needs of specific communities. So we have a wide range of urban, rural, and suburban partners, serving primarily people in the Northeast, students primarily in the Northeast, but recently have invited students from Texas and California to join our programs as well. So really making sure that we're staying connected to the folks who are in each community where we're offering our near-peer mentoring support. And then lastly, equity inclusion is always important, but we know especially in this crisis when our students and their families have been the most vulnerable, in partnership, we've been able to make decisions so that we ensure that we aren't becoming an additional barrier to student success, but are really listening and trying to pay attention to what's happening on the ground. It's part of what I love about our relationship with Elizabeth's work, because we've stayed together in our work really hyper-focused on the Bronx, an area of New York City that was among the first to viscerally feel the effects this year of the pandemic, and staying focused on that community throughout the 12 years of our partnerships has been a North Star to make sure that that our students stay the focus of our work. And many of them have gone on to become the student near-peer mentors in the work as well, and they're leading our efforts in the community. So with all of that context said about who Let's Get Ready is, what our program is, I want to turn it over to Elizabeth, who's going to share a little bit about Hostos Community College, her work with the College Now program. And then once we finish these kind of introductions, we want to really ground you in what's the next set of our agenda for the day.
Okay, thank you. So thank you for hosting me virtually in Philadelphia. So I'll just give a little bit of a context from New York City. So Hostos Community College is part of CUNY, City University of New York, which is New York City's public university. It has 23 campuses. Hostos is fairly small, one of the smallest of the CUNYs. As you can see here, only a little over 7,000 enrollments, very mission driven to serve the local community. We're located in the South Bronx, as Jordan said, really still feeling the effects of sort of triple pandemic this year of the COVID and racist violence and economic downturn. Feeling it quite hard in our students in our community. Almost all the students are from the neighborhood, low-income people of color, many first generation in college. So I won't go, too much further into the history. I've been at Hostos for 14 years. Hostos was founded in 1968. And if you want to learn more about all the amazing community organizing and the people power that fought for the South Bronx in the midst of government abandonment in the 60s and 70s, I really recommend the movie Decade of Fire. So I won't give any other context now, but just throwing that out there for some more context about Hostos. College Now is one of the programs in my office, and through which is our main partnership with Let's Get Ready. It's a free college transition and dual enrollment program, and it's the largest partnership between CUNY and the New York City Department of Education, and it includes 18 colleges and over 420 New York City public high schools, as part of its mission to help students successfully transition to college. So College Now provides college credit courses, which are aligned with first-year study at CUNY, but also pre-college courses that increase students' academic readiness for college without a need for remediation, and college and career awareness courses and activities, as well as full-day summer programs and access to CUNY campuses, facilities, and events. So citywide, College Now serves 22,000 students, But at Hostos specifically, we serve approximately 800 students a year, and we have about a little over 60 partner high schools in the Bronx. My office also serves 2 early college schools that partner with Hostos, and we have begun in the last few years to integrate that work also with Let's Get Ready. College Now is, just here's some quick stats on it. We serve a representative sample of the DOE population, and the goal of College Now is to reach DOE students where they are in the schools they're in by targeting students who are considered like quote unquote mid-range, not students who would necessarily qualify to go to a specialized or a screened school. So we partner with the schools that are, the students who are just in their local schools. And since we are, having an interstate experience here, the ELA Regents is the New York State standardized test. So that is what that is referring to. The impact of College Now, you can see here a very positive impact on credit accumulation and graduation rates into college, and especially at community colleges, which really speaks to how we serve the more mid-range students and have a really large impact, especially on the ones who are headed into community colleges. So that's us.
All right, that's a lot of context and introductions, like who we are, what we're about. But we felt like it was really important to root the rest of what we want to share in that information. So now that you know who we are, we're excited to share a few things about what we've learned and to open up a conversation with this group about our partnerships and our programs, or about your partnerships and your programs if you have questions related to those. So we'll jump in and tell you a little bit more about our story and how these two places found one another and kind of have started where they were to build into something that we are now. We'll talk a little bit about the question of what are the things that have kind of grounded us as a partnership over the years. What are some things that we think have been key learnings? And lastly, we'll do a little bit of Q&O, which is not a typo. It's a cheesy joke that I stole from someone else, but we don't do Q&A because we don't have all the answers, but we have a lot of opinions. So we're happy to share those with you at the end if you'd like to hear them. So we will just jump right into the relationship between our two programs. Hopefully I'm not alone in the room when I describe the experience of walking into a new partnership, especially with higher education folks and community-based organizations, walking into a room like our friend Buddy the Elf saying, "We're family." Elizabeth told me she hasn't seen this movie and so didn't totally get the joke. So if you need a little explanation, Buddy is an elf, Santa's elf, and he appears and tells this man in this movie that they in fact are related. And so I think it's helpful to say this at the outset because so many of us know that ultimately community-based organizations, high schools, higher education institutions have a lot of mission alignment. We care about a lot of the same things. But when we start trying to put our work together and figure out how to collaborate, we can often find ourselves staring at one another saying, who the heck are you and how does it even make sense for us to work together, even though we know there is actually a lot that is there. So we have all of these questions for each other. These are just a few of the questions that Elizabeth and I brainstormed, but I would love to offer a moment. We've been kind of talking a lot, but I'd love to offer a moment for people to take a minute to type in other questions that they've had as a partner. If you're on the university side of things or you're on the K-12 side of things, what are questions that pop up for you when you think about community-based organization and university partnership? I'll just leave people a second to pop those things in. Yes, please, I'm just seeing your thing. Please do borrow Q&O. I borrowed it from somebody else, so. Is it worth my time? Yeah, that's a really big question. Yes, how are you going to get the rest of your colleagues on board? Do you have an MOU? Oh my goodness. Do you have a data sharing agreement I have to sign? Will the institutional research folks allow me to sign it? Yeah, good. What's in it for me? What's in it for you? Yeah, yeah. I have the sense that I'm in the company of people who have tried to do this before. Is there grant funding for this partnership? Good, yeah, yep. Yeah, training for admission staff and counselors, great, great. Yeah, thank you. You can continue to throw questions in the chat as you go, but exactly, we're coming with all of these kinds of questions for one another as we enter these partnerships. So for Elizabeth and I, well, oh wait, sorry, I'm jumping ahead. I'm going to pass it over to Elizabeth, actually. I'm going to stop talking.
Hi, sorry. All right. So yes, those were, I was also distracted because I was writing down all those excellent questions. Yes, we seem to have the right audience here. So with so many questions, it obviously can be hard to know where to start. So in terms of our partnership, like this is how it worked for us. So it started back in 2008, and when we started, the connection was really just utilitarian. We even started with seed funding through the CUNY Black Male Initiative, which at this point is not even connected to what we're doing. Wasn't even necessarily connected at that time, but that is how we had some funding. But the point is that the anchors of the partnership we want to share with you have changed a lot in the 12, 13 years that we've been working together. And this is where it started. So when I started at college now as assistant director, and the director at the time, Danny Volo, he had figured out SAT prep through a specific grant from Peter J. Sharp Foundation. College now specifically will not fund SAT prep because it's about college credit classes. It's specifically not about, will not. If I try to fund that, I'm not allowed. So that grant, so my supervisor Danny had this grant. They'd done this for, I don't know, a year or two maybe. And when the grant ended, the partner high schools, which, like I said, we have over 60, really wanted more SAT services. And by then I was the director, and I really wanted to be able to provide that. So Let's Get Ready wanted to offer their SAT services to more students in the Bronx. So there we go. We went for it. And, we'll share a lot more what's evolved later in the presentation, but finding that initial spark of connection and committing to building together is really just central to how we got where we are now. And we have here listed, commitment to the Bronx, which Jordan was talking about, and basically a shared student recruitment need. I wanted to provide services to the high schools, but it also is a recruitment tool for College Now. And the last value, this is core value of student leadership development. In reality, at that time, we didn't know to the extent to which we shared that, and that will evolve. And we'll talk some about that.
So as we've worked together on this presentation, we've been asking ourselves, since that's kind of where it started with this, just a few kind of utilitarian, we need these things from each other. How did we get to where we are 12 years later? And let me just say that if you want to deepen your relationship with a partner, sign up to lead a webinar or a workshop with them. You'll learn a lot more about them. And I think that's actually been really great for our working relationship to even understand things more deeply. But one of the things we've been saying to one another is that, sorry, let me back up. Before we jump into more details about that, these three anchors are the things that came up as the answer to that question of if we just started with this kind of small thread of connection, how have we gotten to where we are? And these are kind of the three things that we have said have helped to take us there. So what I'm going to invite everybody to do at this moment is I'm actually going to throw something in the chat. And I'm going to invite you to just share related to the question that you were sharing before. But when you think about your partnerships or your hopes for partnerships, what would you say are some of the hardest things that have come up for you about sustaining partnerships for the long term? I listed a few here. You can just pop in the number, but there's that always present other if you want to type in your own thing that's not listed here. Yeah, I'm seeing a few roll in. It's hard to pick just one. There's so many. Yeah, yeah. These can be a lot of shared challenges. Yeah. And if you've already put in your answer, as you think about your most successful partnerships, what would you add to this list of anchors? Elizabeth and I have said here that this finding multiple layers of value, having our stuff together, compromising, growing together are sort of three things that have been really critical to us for making sure that our partnerships were successful. But I'd love to hear, what would you add to this list of anchors that has made your work in partnership happen? Yeah, frequent and open communication, transparency. Great. Yeah, thank you guys. I'm seeing so many of these. And Hillary, I'm just seeing your comment about, I'm assuming this is one of the challenges you're adding, institutionalizing, moving from something scrappy and new to something more formal and larger. Yeah, that's a huge challenge. It's a really good one to narrate as well. Great. And then the last thing I'd like to do is a little, I'm a social worker, so it's like a little warm and fuzzy, but let's show some appreciation for the people we partner with that we know we have that magic spark. So nobody gets to put any explanations in. You just get to put a person's name that you feel a lot of gratitude for in partnership. So invite everybody to do that. Send out some really nice, warm vibes of gratitude for the people, because what we know is that partnership is hard. And when you find that magic relationship, it's magic and it's so very worth it. And so Elizabeth and I want to talk a little bit about what that is. But I see we're shy. I'm writing Elizabeth's name here, but I'm also going to write somebody else's name. So you're welcome. As you guys continue to write those in, we'll keep moving on. But oh, stop it. Now it's just me and Elizabeth being nice to each other. Please do join the fun if you want to put somebody's first name in, just to send some positive vibes of gratitude. As you're doing that, we will jump into sharing a little bit more about what we've learned in these different anchors. So I'll turn it over to Elizabeth.
So, you know, based on what people have been putting in the chat and sharing as questions, I can tell that, you know, folks have a lot of experience with this, and I'm sure that we've all been in partnerships. So this is just like one little thread holding things together because it's someone's passion project, or it's currently convenient or randomly funded. And, you know, those projects might not go well, or maybe it goes really well and then it dies. And so what we've done with our partnership is really created a set of referral networks between our programs that's mutually beneficial to each of our programs and also to the students. And so having that kind of systems thinking can really help CBOs that are trying to partner with colleges and universities. So our kind of overlapping mission alignments. So someone put this in the chat, question about are our goals aligned? You know, so how do we evaluate the success? So our goals are not aligned in every single way at all, but there's overlapping mission alignment that shows up for us through in a couple ways. So one is about recruitment that I referred to earlier. So multiple points of entry for high school students. And so like, to join college now, basically Let's Get Ready is just like one way. You can also join joining a college credit course, but then you might be offered Let's Get Ready. You can join pre-college courses. You can join summer programs like Bronx Civic Scholars. And then similarly, once you're in Let's Get Ready, you might lead directly into other programs that college now offers. So like from my point of view at Hostos College now, Let's Get Ready provides a service, the SAT service, and also a recruitment tool. So there's definitely students who are motivated and schools, counselors who are motivated to sign up for an SAT class with Let's Get Ready. But then once they're there, it opens up a full set of enrichment opportunities for them to explore and ultimately support them all the way through college graduation. So maybe they think they're just signing up for an SAT prep class, but then we recruit them into a college class. And then once they graduate from that, we're into those other Let's Get Ready programs that Jordan was talking about, the transition and the success program into college. So this is really like synergy and not duplication. And then on the LGR side, like Jordan was saying, as a national program, they really need a local partner to actually implement programs successfully and rooted in the community. I've had a lot of partners who have tried to do, or people who have not partnered with us, but I've seen who tried to sort of do their own recruitment, try to put together a whole class, try to put together a whole summer program. And unless you have those networks and those connections, very, very hard to fill a class, to fill a program, unless you are working with a local group like us. So again, that we kind of can feed each other as a recruitment tool. And then, as I referred to earlier, we also sort of discovered that we had a shared commitment to leadership development. So beyond the overall goals of College Now, at Hostos, our program strives to develop student leaders by creating a continuum of opportunities with partners such as Let's Get Ready. So once we have people who are students, then and they keep working with us, then we end up forming this sort of web of relationships that can form a critical way that our partnership has had longevity in terms of students have opportunities for programs and also opportunities for leadership. So here's like different ways in which we've had people, these are all, real life examples of students who have both been part of our programs and then worked for us. So once they're in college, students are not only getting Let's Get Ready's near-peer mentoring and support, but through having this interconnected partnership, there's multiple opportunities for college students to get work and volunteer opportunities for both or either program. So, and past college, our partnership has provided opportunities for full-time work and instructor positions at College Now. We've hired alumni who have worked for us part-time and full-time. Both as instructors, as adjuncts or instructors for pre-college programs, as well as people working in my office. So like last month, we were actually just presenting at a student leadership conference, and we had a panel of 6 alumni, and all of them had been students in either one or both of our programs, most of them in both of our programs, and then they've worked or volunteered for one or both of us. So for us, it's a partnership which has just opened up spaces for this whole, so many more opportunities for student development, this whole web of relationships. And when we were presenting with these students, like, it's not like they had a sense of sort of what was Let's Get Ready, what was College Now. They might have just worked as an office assistant and then worked as a access coach, and then eventually been a site director, and but to them it's all kind of one big web of opportunities and career and college readiness. And then Jordan, I think you're going to talk about Let's Get Ready's side of the employees.
Yep, I was having a little trouble coming off mute there. Still a challenge. Yeah, so at Let's Get Ready, over half of our college student employees are either alumni of the high school programs, or they represent the student populations that we serve both racially and economically. And so at Hostos in particular, we work to hire students who have worked for Elizabeth's office specifically, and to make sure that we're maintaining that connection like Elizabeth was describing. And it might be worth noting that when the partnership first started, transition and success coaches weren't actually a thing at Let's Get Ready. And so it just kind of reinforces the idea that you start with the spark that you have, and you create space in your relationship through open communication over time to really allow your programs to expand and grow and opportunities for students. So the last thing we want to say about this kind of piece about finding multiple layers of value, we've mentioned this piece about Hostos creating opportunity because of their grounding in the community. And often what you'll find what I have found is that nonprofit goals are typically aligned around the language of persistence and college graduation. And so does a student persist anywhere in school versus universities' goals, which are retention, in the language of completion at my campus. Did the students complete a degree at my school? And it's not that these goals aren't aligned, it's just that they have nuance to them, right? That there's a little bit of nuance in the way we talk about them. So I hate to overhype this, but we do plan to speak a little bit more about how we've taken our work from focusing centrally on that SAT prep component of our work to including more actually current Hostos Community College students. But I mentioned it here briefly just to say that when it comes to finding multiple layers of value for our institutions, sometimes those are loose and nuanced, but they can still be grounding and open up space for ways to think about how you develop your own shared goals. And I think from the Let's Get Ready perspective on this as well, partnering with Elizabeth specifically as someone who doesn't sit in a retention office, an enrollment or admissions office, has really helped. Her role has really helped us navigate the institution of Hostos Community College. She's kind of been like a tour guide for us as we navigate and understand that system on a whole in ways that we couldn't necessarily on our own as outsiders to that work, and because of how we think about our work in these slightly more nuanced ways. So she gets to kind of straddle that line for us and help us see the way.
So for those of you who are on this call from institutions of higher education, or maybe those of you who are CBOs and have been frustrated in trying to work with higher education, you might have seen that partnering with CBOs is not always a priority. There's often lip service to it, and there's often and I love Hostos in every way, and a very important part of the mission is to serve the community, but in terms of, does that mean actually partnering with specific CBOs in ways that are actually helpful? Not necessarily, unless it comes from an initiative from the president's office, so in my role, basically, I just have to be an advocate for the work and then be the one to navigate the systems and the bureaucracy of a large university. Someone had put the question in the chat, how do you get your colleagues on board? And to be honest, and I think a lot of you in higher education might have the same experience, I get my colleagues on board by having it not having asks of other people, of like trying to keep it in, make the partnership work within our office. So in our office, we've been able to do that by finding synergies between all the different programs and seeing how the work can build on each other. So I learned this from my supervisor when I started, who I mentioned before, Danny Volo, who he would just like literally walk around Hostos and like find empty desks or a spot that he thought an empty desk could go in, and then be like, oh, I'm going to put so-and-so community partner to like sit there twice a week, and get permission from the chair of behavioral social sciences. Oh, can I just use that desk 2 hours, twice a week? And he's also the one who brought in the funding that I mentioned before from Black Male Initiative. So I really learned from him that it's about, creating these conditions and figuring out ways to support CBOs and outside partners, even if that is not about like getting admissions on board, So when Jordan suggested launching the Success Coach program in the college, I did, went to my provost, but basically said, look, I'm going to house it in my office, right? Like I'm going to I'll find, if they need a desk, if they need printing, if they need that, and so she's like, okay, right? Like I didn't have to be convincing that, that how this was going to be a recruitment tool, even though now that it is launched, that is an argument that we ideally get to make.
Yeah. So, thank you for letting us speak candidly sort of about how we have to navigate these dynamics on our different sides of the table here. And as we move on from this anchor of partnership, we want to leave these reflection questions. Oh, I didn't change the slide. There we go. These reflection questions at the end of each section, just as you're thinking about your own context. We won't spend a bunch of time here, but like Janine said, we have we'll have the slides available. And if these questions are helpful to you and prompting your own thinking about your own programs or questions you might have for us, then we're happy to offer them up. So the next anchor that we kind of talked about is that since we all understand that kind of shared values, multiple layers of our work overlapping is really important, we also probably can't just overstate the importance of a quickly answered email or a returned phone call. There's a lot more to having our stuff together as partners, but it can simply start with just that. And especially in the context of a university system that has a lot of moving pieces and doesn't necessarily have time to chase down CBO partners or people who are not answering the email or not the first to answer the phone call. So having your stuff together often starts with just being really clear from the beginning and then committing to communicating changes. From the outset, Elizabeth has been clear with us. These are the things I can offer. These are the things I can't offer. These are the things I need from you. And then Let's Get Ready has also worked to be clear that we need very tangible things. And when we don't need tangible things, and really getting into the nitty gritty of what those specific things are, all the way from, I need a place to put this box of manuals. Can I put it in your office? To, we need to make sure that we keep the classrooms clean if their kids are going to eat pizza in them during live programs. So all of those little details actually all add up to having your stuff together. Let's Get Ready. This kind of high level of collaboration is so important to us that we've actually built it into our theory of change. And so this is my plea for other nonprofit organizations and in the room as well. And I'm sure many of you are doing this as well, as that it's there. And when something is in your theory of change, we know that these are the things that get resourced. These are the things that get discussed at high levels at board meetings and among executive teams and that sort of thing. And so making sure that you're staffing, resourcing, and constantly talking about the importance of partnership for actually how we get our work done. And what I would say too is that I think that when we've done this, what it has meant for our staff as well is that our staff team really understands that a percentage of our time really goes into checking in and saying, like, how's it going? Partnership building stuff, like making sure that we're making time to answer those calls, that we're making time to check in on our partners like Elizabeth and other folks as well. So once you've been kind of clear about expectations, both of the partner and ourselves, the follow through with accountability has also really mattered. So we know we have to come with sort of solid, quality, organized products that align with our strategic priorities. And it may seem kind of redundant in a room full of people who are used to like living and dying by the cycles of grant reporting. I know that these are like not new concepts to this group of people. But I put it here because we know it is really important. And it's even more important, I would say, in this virtual environment that we've been living in, because, at Let's Get Ready, about 2/3 of our program has actually been designed as a virtual program. And what we've learned through that experience is that because it's so much harder to gather the kind of visual data cues that let you know something is running well in a virtual environment, you can't kind of overstate and oversay the facts of what is happening, because a partner can't just like swing by a classroom and be like, oh, it seems like it's going pretty well, or I saw that person and they seem to be facilitating something and it was effective. But these virtual tools for staff end up becoming a really critical feedback loop. Internally for us, this is happening kind of on a daily and weekly basis. You can see from these like colorful stripes here, this is some of how our coaches and our program manager staff are collecting data each week. They're looking at how many times have students been engaged, what percentage of those were phone calls versus text messages. We're rolling that all up into more cumulative reports that are getting sent to individual program partners so that they can also see what's happening. on a not only weekly communication basis, but then also on a kind of end of term basis. So we'll talk a little bit about resource sharing next, but a lot of what you'll hear about how we've shared resources from Let's Get Ready's perspective kind of starts here. It starts at the work we've put in on the upfront, being able to really understand what's working on the ground in the program, what isn't working, being able to tell the story of virtual programming through data, and introducing high levels of accountability. It's, aside from it just being important as a way to steward our partner relationship, it helps us stay clear internally. So when budgets get tight or things need to change or trouble comes, we feel really clear and focused on understanding what is and isn't working in these programs.
So all of that effort to be transparent and accountable is, fantastic, but it's really matched from, the side that I'm looking at from the Hostos side. It's in terms of matched by LGR and in terms of their training and recruitment support. So, Jordan just showed a whole bunch of tools and training and support, but like from my side, I don't see that background work. But what it translates into is strong program administration and ease of partnership for me and my team. So, to be honest, I don't care a huge amount about the reporting systems they're using or the theory of change or what the workbooks and tools look like for the college student management system. But what I do care about is that when it comes to actually showing up on the campus, the execution of a strong program and the results are effective and everything's run smoothly. So what I can see is that there's strong weekly supervision of the college students and that the hiring process and training they provide is, very evident by how things operate. So I get the Metro cards, the subway passes for students because I can get that from the College Now side. I can trust that it'll get done by the college students who LGR hires and supervises, that they'll track it appropriately. If there's something wrong with the site directors or anything, or somebody misses the mark, I know I can follow up with Jordan or previous to her, different program manager at LGR who'll respond promptly and get it taken care of. So the fact that those things are well organized with strong program administration is what makes, just the full difference in terms of the partnership. And, every year we have this sort of worry about how we're going to get the college students we need to run the program and all of that. But, LGR always starts the process early. They reach out to me early to get it set up. They get the college students recruited. There's minimal effort required on my end, to be honest, in terms of that. And that's really key. They produce a flyer and they produce the student application and they just send it. And so then I can send out the flyer along with my other summer flyers. And it's very streamlined and efficient. And when new ideas have come up, things are running smoothly. We don't have to put out a bunch of fires for things that they're going now, which gives us the space to be creative and expand in our work together, which is what we've done. And the reaching out early in the sort of year, it's a summer program has traditionally been all we ran. Now we run a year-round success, but before that, we would still have year-round contact, even though the work was in the summer. So they were always telling me what the data looked like, in the fall. As students took the SATs in the fall, I'd get that data. And then, by January, we're starting to plan for the summer, which is great because we have so many balls in the air that it's a huge incentive for me to stick with partners who I don't have to chase down, who offer that kind of reliability and consistency. So the questions we have to leave you with on this section are about your theory of change and can you articulate why that partnership matters to your program outcomes and how you're resourcing partnership maintenance in the way that Jordan was talking about, what rhythms are reflected on the progress towards goals will serve all partners involved, and when something goes wrong, who are the right people to involve. And that brings us to our final anchor, which really boils down to this. We've given our partnership the space to evolve over time. Nobody freaked out and ran when someone said, oh, we have a tight budget, or we ran into the inevitable issue that happens when you have college students running your programs. As our needs have changed, we've listened to each other and continued to work together to leverage the best of what LGR and Hostos College now have to offer students in the South Bronx. And we make sure that what we're offering is responsive to current interests. So huge one, and we cannot underestimate this one, is funding, right? So we have to talk a lot about sharing resources in this partnership. And ideally that when either Hostos College Now or LGR get resources in one way or another, that we share them so that we're lifting all boats, that any resources that we get are helping the partnership. So we had funding at the beginning from CUNY Blackmail Initiative. We then sort of figured out funding from a few other sources on our side. And at some point, I can't remember exactly which, if this was in reaction to, which economic downturn, but at some point we literally had no money. And I, had to call Let's Get Ready and say, I'm sorry, we can't run the program. We don't have any money to give you. And I was not trying to drive a hard bargain. I was not trying to fundraise. I just was being honest. We literally have no money at the end of the year. And Jordan said, we're going to figure out a way to cover this because we're committed to the Bronx. And that, I mean, that is really, that is deep, deep, partnership there. And then, so Let's Get Ready is committed to keeping the partnership funded, even in the years where I have not, from the Hostos side, been able to come up with money to fund it. And now we've moved into writing shared grant applications. So we're, hoping that we will actually have some shared funding. But in the meanwhile, it's still up to sort of me to try to figure out whatever I can do, and Jordan to figure out what they can do at Let's Get Ready. And then there's always just the in-kind from Hostos, right? So the security, the space, the storage, the computer labs, the pizza so that the students will actually show up, the Metro cards, the subway passes for students, and we also get them for the coaches. Which also has been again, when we're in person, is a really big boon. And then another place where the funding overlap we sort of worked out there was that initially, since the program in the summer happens in the evening, our office is not normally open, but we have to have someone who represents our office and Hostos in case, God forbid, there's a problem or whatever, just to open the office to put the books back in there, whatever. So our initial move was to hire a professor who would be around in the evenings, and we did that for a year or two, but it was ultimately unsustainable. It's just very expensive to pay a professor to stay 4 hours in the evening or 3 hours in the evening. So basically what we did was we kind of connected the dots of these multiple program entry points we were discussing, and we found the solution of hiring college students who could play multiple roles. So this is where we go back to that student development part, where Let's Get Ready hired at least one site director a year who was someone who had been a student or had worked in my office, or someone I had a relationship with, which meant then I could pay that person a little bit extra to represent Hostos and be my presence there, my office's presence, and they're also a site director for Let's Get Ready. So that is, easier recruitment wise, easier training wise, and basically just made it sustainable from a funding point of view, that we didn't need to be paying a professor to stay the whole evening. So those are a few of the nitty gritty ways in which we pooled our funding and in-kind resources to try to lift up the partnership.
Great. Yeah, thanks, Elizabeth. And I think to me that just so hammers home the point of we were talking about earlier, was this piece around CBOs really understanding what our non-negotiables are, what are our kind of really strong core commitments, so that we've been able to navigate this. Because, one thing I'll say from the Let's Get Ready end of things too, is that has meant the way we've stayed connected to this sort of set of core vision and commitment to our work together has gone both ways also, because that has meant also that when Elizabeth has said, oh, some things have shifted, we have a trusting relationship where I know when there are additional resources on her side of things, she's going to let me know too, and we're going to talk about how we can share those. So over the years, these are just a few of the other kinds of conversations. Elizabeth mentioned a few, but these are a couple of the other types of conversations that we've had to have. And I think that this has been really important for us as we think about our growth together as a partnership. At some point, for most of Let's Get Ready's time, we've only paid some of our college students. So some of them have been volunteers and some of them have been on the payroll. And Elizabeth has been a strong advocate for saying we just pay everybody because it's limiting who can volunteer with us or who can participate because folks need jobs. And this is actually under review and is moving forward. We will, as soon as we're back in more normal times, it's very unlikely we'll go back to a moment where we have paid volunteer college student roles anymore. And there's a lot of things that went under that, but Elizabeth has been a strong advocate for that for many years. We've had lots of conversations about it. We used to have a policy around SAT scores and how high a student's SAT scores had to be to volunteer and participate with our program. And Elizabeth was somebody who was like, are you sure you want to leave that in place? Like, it's really blocking out this whole set of really great college students who have a lot to or a lot to offer our students. And so I think those have been really important conversations. And then she mentioned the professor one. So those are kind of just a few of the ways we've had to work together over the years. And, it's not all fun and games. You have to stay humble and we have to keep trying to stay in our lane because, as we've mentioned, Elizabeth is the navigator for this complex system of Hostos that we've wanted to partner with and that we have partnered with. And even in our conversations over the last couple of months about this presentation and some of our other ones, we've learned more things about each other's institutions. And so I think having to make sure we stay open to that, helping to trust one another so that we don't step into each other's political messes on accident or into some territory that we don't fully understand because we're not insiders to each other's work. And I think really developing a trusting relationship where we can help each other through those dynamics. And yeah, so I don't know, Elizabeth, you want to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things that we've discussed some is just don't try to get into someone else's bureaucracy. So, another partner I have recently is trying to get me to, try to get department chairs to accept a certain course is to replace remediation, and I just kept being like that. You can't, it just doesn't work that way. Like you as an outside organization, you're not about to get Hostos chairs to change a policy they have about remediation. So, even if it is wrongheaded or we can see a different way, you can't really start a partnership with telling each other institutions what's wrong with how they're doing it. And you just got to stay in your lane and not try to change anyone else's bureaucracy.
So through kind of these years of compromise and growing together, I finally am excited to share about what I had been alluding to and the growth of our programs. So we've gone from kind of running this 9-week program one time a summer to help students from College Now with their SAT prep and their college applications, to now actually exploring some shared funding together. And what started as this thing that was kind of like a great idea to be mutually beneficial in some way around recruitment and some things that students needed. This year, we're really excited to be piloting something together that Let's Get Ready has tried with a couple of other partners and a couple of other universities and nonprofits, where we're creating kind of this longer term continuum of services by working together to hand off students who participate in the College Now program to Let's Get Ready once they leave high school. So by immediately saying to them, once they finish that program, congratulations on earning all of this college credit, because of all the work you've done with College Now, you're actually now eligible to get free mentoring and support all the way through college graduation. So this means that we're going from supporting just kind of this 60 or so students in the summer program who say, yes, I want SAT prep support, to going to, even if you didn't sign up for the SAT prep support because you didn't think you needed it at the time, you're still eligible. There's still more opportunities for you to say, yes, I want the help to graduate from college. And because you've demonstrated such a strong commitment to your own education through the College Now program, you now are also eligible for this free support from Let's Get Ready as well. So we piloted this approach with about 1,200 new students with some funding that came this last year in response to the pandemic in summer 2020. And a handful of colleges and nonprofit organizations connected their graduating seniors to us. And this year we've seen that the students who came to us through partnerships at the college level are engaging us at similar levels as students who joined us as juniors in high school. So we're really excited to see that this is off to a promising start, and even more excited to see that we're expanding that to our work with Elizabeth and their students at Hostos Community College. And of course, we'll be monitoring their college persistence rates as well, in addition to kind of how they're doing engagement levels. But I want to say a little bit more about how that might relate to Philadelphia in a minute, but we'll wrap up this section just by offering up these questions that you are welcome to take kind of into your own work as well. And the ways that these questions kind of connect back to this idea of non-negotiables and starting with where you are in a partnership to help think about where it could be over the long run, just by starting where you are. All right, so the last things we'll say before we open it up to more questions is that this summer, we're really excited to be onboarding 2 new Philadelphia School District partners, 2 high schools that are both enrolling their graduating class of 2021 into our virtual success program. And then one who's opting to recruit their class of 2022 to get support from a near peer mentor throughout their senior year of high school starting this fall. So in addition to the 300 juniors from Philadelphia that we've been enrolling through our free SAT prep work this spring, the 200 high school seniors and the 900 Philadelphia college students that we were already serving, we're really, really excited to be welcoming these 2 new partner schools into our work. And it's really important for us because we've been historically relying on referrals from a wide range of schools and community-based organizations because of the flexibility that our partnership with Temple has allowed, that anyone could send their students to those programs. But in working with the Office of Strategic Partnerships at the Philadelphia School District, I'm really excited that Ayana and Mariana are helping to identify schools in particular that could expand the schools that are participating rather than just the small subset of schools that have historically been sending students our way each year. So we really appreciate the school district's thoughtfulness. We really appreciate Janine and Hillary inviting us to share more about the work that we've been doing nationally and with Elizabeth, but then also opportunities that opens for Philadelphia students as well. So at Let's Get Ready, this is one example of a partnership of how it's worked, how it's developed over 12 years time with Elizabeth and her office. We have partners that we work with in a wide range of settings. Some of them are sending us 25 students, all the way up to some of them sending us 900 students at a time in rural communities, suburban communities, and in cities as well. So we're growing, and our goal is to find the students and the partners who most need and want the support of our amazing near peers. So whether you're doing a lot of high quality work with high school students already, and you're looking for someone to hand them off to as they go into college, or if you are looking for folks who can support them on their pre-college journey as they're navigating the SAT and the college application process. We have opportunities in both ways to partner and work to help support your students. So my contact information is there. And then I also know Elizabeth from the college side of things, as you've heard, has a ton of wisdom to share about what it's like to bring community-based organizations like Let's Get Ready into a campus environment too. So please do feel free to reach out to us separately if you'd like to talk more. But with that, I'm going to take a deep breath and invite anybody who has questions, who would like for us to wax poetic with our opinions. We're happy to do that.
Folks, you should feel free to, you can do the raise hand feature, you can put a question in the chat, or if you're feeling particularly bold, you can just unmute yourself and have at it.
I wonder if we should look at some of those, there were a few questions earlier
Oh, yeah.
so there was one that we haven't addressed yet, which was, do we have an MOU, and is that hard to establish? Which I thought was a fascinating question because we don't have an MOU. but I was like, oh, great question.
Yeah, that's so good. Here's what I'll say. I'll say our work with Elizabeth is actually a little bit of an exception. We do have an MOU that we typically have in place, and I think it actually to me speaks a little bit to the point that Hillary made earlier, is like that making that transition from kind of like scrappy early stages to like that next phase, right? Like we have different partnerships at different areas of that continuum across all of our kind of menu of partnerships. And I think Elizabeth, you and I probably will talk more about that, especially with this, if that grant funding comes through. Like that's gonna help push us through to that next level of like, yeah, structures and systems in place at that level. But
yeah, and I sort of realized that in connection to another question that had been put in the chat about how to get colleagues on board. I was like, oh yeah, just having an MOU that I had to take to someone to get signed, legal, and the legal person in the president's office. I'm like, oh, that's that would raise it to a whole different level of involvement. So.
We have another question from Leanne. Is it required that college mentors be graduates of or been involved with the high school program?
Great question. It is not a requirement. It's just that we prioritize the students who apply for those positions who come from.
Yeah, and I feel like part of what it does is it just sort of creates incentive for both of us to keep the partnership going. I mean, long before there was a point at which Let's Get Ready was like, providing this when I couldn't come up with funding or whatever. It was a partnership that was of intrinsic value to me because it was a place that alumni I had who had either been students, maybe they'd worked in my office, but it provided this a place where I could be like, oh, hire this person as a site director, and then they can, work for me. And I had one of the students who presented with us last month had actually come back, had been a student of college now, had come back as a coach in college. And that's when I ended up talking to her, and I would just send out the sort of volunteer coach opportunities, even though I don't think they should be volunteer. And I'm thrilled to hear that that's reconsidering that. But, I'd send that out to my alumni. So then one of my alumni was back doing that. And then I connected to her and she was getting her master's in education. She's a DOE teacher now. And so she has taught at this point several courses for college now. So again, it's not a requirement, but it provided the sort of intrinsic value from my side, being like, oh, here's a place that is where students can get hired and get job skills. And so it's been a very important part of the partnership.
I actually have a question for you all. I mean, it's obvious that the two of you and so ergo your institutions have a really great collaboration, sort of born of many years of working together and figuring it out. Jordan, I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about how you make inroads into other institutions where you don't have an Elizabeth.
Oh no, everybody needs an Elizabeth. Yeah. That's a great question. I think I really do believe in that principle that we shared about just starting where you are. And so I think sometimes from the CBO side of things, we want to start things in this like really formal, we want it to be this like beautiful finalized package really early on. And it just takes so much time to demonstrate your value, to demonstrate your outcomes, to help people believe in and trust that you're going to do what you say you're going to do. And so, I think for me, that just in other institutions, that has just meant, reaching out, making connections through webinars and conferences, and then following up. Like it's, when we have a new impact report, I send it over and I say, just saying, hey, again, wanted to remind you that we have our new impact report coming out, or I invited some people to this event, actually. I was like, hey, we're speaking about this, this partnership that we have. We'd love for you to come learn more about it. I think there have been moments where we've connected partners at the institutional level to other people. So people who are kind of interested in learning about how Let's Get Ready could support their work on campus. And so said, oh, great. Well, why don't you talk to one of our other partners about what that's been like? So I think it's just like the long, slow grind of showing up, doing what you say you're going to do, being kind of trustworthy. It's that like having your stuff together piece that I think is I wish I had like a sexier answer to that question, but I feel like that's the truth.
No, but I think it is a really good question. I think the point that like this began in a very utilitarian way actually is, part of the answer. I mean, at that point, Let's Get Ready, I don't think provided much more than SAT prep. And if it did, I had no idea, right? Like I was straight up just looking for SAT prep. And Let's Get Ready, I think it was straight up just looking for some connections in the Bronx. And, and for years, that's kind of what it was. And then Let's Get Ready sort of is expanding things. But I mean, there was, the first year we did it, we didn't even do, I think we recruited from we offered it to our schools, but then I didn't recruit from Let's Get Ready into our college classes. And it was kind of, I think around the second year that I was like, wait, what am I doing? I need to recruit these people into our college class, the rest of our programs. But, I just feel like it started with this really tiny, very utilitarian seed of just like, okay, SAT prep, you want to be in the Bronx, here's 50 students, fine, we're done, and then once it's there and like Jordan said, functioning well, then you're like, oh, wait, they gather these 50 kids in one room at the beginning of the session. I can go in with flyers and recruit people to my programs, and it just sort of grows. It can grow from there once it's from a very small seed.
And Jordan, could you just mention the schools that you're in Philadelphia?
Yeah, sure. We can mention those. So we are working with Saul and Dobbins. Is where we were. Those are the two new schools, and then there's a list of probably like 10 to 15 other high schools that have just been sending students to that kind of open enrollment site that we've done through our partnership with Temple.
Great, thank you. Any other questions for Jordan or Elizabeth?
So I don't want to prevent anyone from coming up with new ones, but I'm still looking at the ones from the beginning that there's still a couple we haven't addressed. So someone said, is there training for admission staff and high school at the college side and high school counselors to merge ideas? And that in this particular partnership, we don't do that. And that is I've sort of tried to do bits and pieces of that in other partnerships I have, and that's a really heavy lift. That's really hard. I mean, I'm sure wherever I don't know who asked this question, but whatever institution you work at, I'm sure is, struggling to have enough staff for admissions as we are, and trying to get anything sort of additional is really tough. So, we really have kind of worked around the edges of some of this. And I think if we get this additional funding, those are going to be some of the things that we're going to try to be like, but look, if we're supporting the students through Hostos, it's really helping with our graduation rates. Like if we can prove some of that, then we can kind of come around to, I think, getting potentially some more administrative support. But yeah, I think that was also a really excellent question. And that's the kind of thing that is actually like, I've been at Hostos for almost 15 years, and have been doing lots of work, but that's still a really heavy lift and a really big ask to sort of try to get admissions or something else, or testing. Someone like that is always like pulling teeth. I don't know, Jordan, if you had other thoughts about that.
No, I think that was great.
Okay, I don't see any other questions. So I guess I will just thank both of you very much for this morning. We really appreciate you coming and sharing this information. I'm getting lots of good feedback, both not only in the chat, but also on text, as people had to leave saying, please tell them this was great. Let me know about any follow-up. So we will do that. And again, we'll make sure that the recording and the slides are available to everyone. So with that, please enjoy the rest of your day. It's beautiful here in Philadelphia. I hope it's as beautiful in New York. Get outside, say hello to a bird or something. And again, thank you very much for your time this morning. Everybody take care. Bye-bye now.
Thank you so
Bye,
much,
thank you.
everyone, for being here. Thank you, Janine, so much for hosting.